Now, this is a video you're going to want to watch. How to fix your mistakes. Better yet, how to work with them. Best yet, how to not make them in the first place. Now, as you watch the various lessons from Calligraphy Corner, you're going to see how I go through the process of creating a beautiful piece of fine art. And the answer is you do a rough draft and another rough draft. In most cases, tracing either from a light table or graphics paper, you're going to trace. And with each layer, you're diminishing the likelihood that you're going to make a mistake. So that's number one. Try to hedge your bet. I think many amateurs look at a finished piece of calligraphy and they imagine wrongly that the professional calligrapher just sat down and wrote that out. Well, it didn't happen that way. They made steps and steps of preparation, so on and so forth. So you do the same thing and your number of mistakes will be diminished drastically. Now, let me give you a hierarchy of solutions, starting with the best solution and working down to the most drastic, and hopefully you'll never have to do these. But if you are working, and I'm going to make it hard on myself by working on a piece of parchment paper so the color is not easy to match. How am I going to fix a splotch like this? Well, number one is don't fix it, work with it if at all possible. If you have just a few dots like this, you know what has happened. You've picked up your pen and you've dipped it in your ink, and then on the way over here, something happens and it splatters. Well, sometimes, not often, but sometimes you can simply incorporate those splatters by making more of them, artistically, creatively spaced. So then, and this doesn't work on a certificate, this does not work on an invitation, but it may very well work on a piece of fine art, right? Because you can get away with a lot more in fine art. So you make a number of splatters and then everybody knows that you did it on purpose. Got it? So number one, work with your mistakes, fit them in so nobody knows they're a mistake. Another one, very similar to that, every once in a while, you'll be able to incorporate, if it's just one speck or a couple specks, you can work them into a flourish. Let's say we're ending a line of text with the letter G, and I've got a dot out here, then I'm going to make my flourish go something like this, come up there, do you see that? And pick up that dot, that splatter, so it's no longer a splatter, it's covered. But alas, the time may come when in fact you've got a smudge like this or some of these streaks, your hand hit something. Speaking of your hand hitting something, invest in one of these inexpensive gloves. I don't know where I got this, dollar store, Walmart, office supply, and then I cut off the fingers. That keeps my hand from releasing oil onto the page and changing the nature of the page and so forth. So it's very cheap, very, very, very good tool to have on hand. So the day comes that you need to fix it. None of these other techniques I've talked about will work. Well, the best solution is to scratch off if possible. Now, this depends almost entirely on the particular paper that you're working on. This will work with some papers, it won't work with others, and this is a time for reading glasses. I want to get in here really close, and I'm going to take this utility knife and very carefully, and yes, sometimes I've actually got a high-powered magnifying glass and leaned way in to see this very carefully and scratch off. Now, there are some papers where this will work, and there are other papers where this will not work. So the solution is in the kind of paper that you're using. Now, if you're using a watercolor paper, some watercolor papers will take the scratching. If not, then we move to the next most drastic form of repair, which is painting, applying something, putting something on the paper like paint, something opaque that you have to cover up. Now, Creative Mark does make a couple of really good tools here. These are whiteout, essentially. You know what whiteout is, but this one is designed to cover arches or arches, bright white. This one is designed to cover arch, you can tell I'm not French, arches, natural white. So there are a couple of different colors there that are already pre-formulated to match the color of your watercolor paper. So if you happen to have the right color, the right paper, you're in good luck there. Many times, of course, that just won't be the case. You'll be working on a warm white or some color that you don't have the whiteout for. So then you're going to want to become a painter. And again, this is only if you've got, 3.5 hours invested in a piece of final art and it has a bad smudge in it, this is the kind of thing that you might do. A good quality brush. I'm now working in watercolor, and I'm going to try to match this color of paint with watercolor. But even while I'm doing that, let me tell you this. One of the things that you may discover early on is that when you start painting on top of this ink, if your ink is water-based, then you're going to find that, there, that's pretty close enough. You're going to find, let me see if it matches. I'm hoping maybe you can't even see that on camera. We could tweak a little bit more, get closer. That's good enough for now. Is that many times, though, if you start covering up like this, you'll find that the ink bleeds, right? If it's water-based ink like this is, it doesn't work. It just reactivates the ink. So in that case, you're going to have to spray something like a workable fixative. I'm not going to spray this now, but you would finish your entire project, make sure the ink is dry, spray the entire project with a couple light coats of workable fixative, and then you come back and actually paint on top of the fixative. I know it sounds complex, but remember, you've got 4.5 hours in this project. It's worth it if you can repair it. And finally, the most drastic form of repair, if you ever need to get to this point, is you literally cut out a piece of paper. Now, I've taken the liberty of going ahead and cutting this one. I had a smudge here, and I cut as much as possible, again, using a magnifying glass if you need to, or high-powered reading glasses. I've cut right along the edge of the nearest letters. You see that? And then I can pull this up and remove that smudge. Then I take a piece of clean paper. Let's pretend this is clean. And you come in here and carefully cut exactly the same size and shape, and tape that on with linen tape, some kind of archival product that won't turn yellow. And if you need to, that's the worst case. Now, just one more thing. Again, if you do that, you're still going to have a cut line. So if it were me, I would be mixing up some kind of paint, maybe watercolor, maybe acrylic paint, very dry, and using it as joint compound and filling in the crack. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what I would do. So that's my take on working with mistakes. Number one, hedge your bets, don't make them. Number two, work them in. Make it look like you did it on purpose. Number three, scratch them off if you can. Number four, paint them if you have to. And number five, God forbid, cut them up. Most of all, I just hope you won't make any mistakes. I'm sure to make enough for the two of us, so you have a great time doing your mistake-free calligraphy. Go get them.